John Matthews lived in a world that most people could only dream of. Every morning he woke up in a large bedroom with silk curtains, overlooking a garden so perfectly manicured that it looked like it belonged in a magazine. The sun would shine through the windows, reflecting on the polished wooden floor. And for a moment, life seemed absolutely perfect. He had a beautiful wife, 2 children who were smart and talented, and a house filled with every kind of luxury imaginable. Cars lined the driveway, the kitchen was stocked with gourmet food. There was always someone ready to assist in any task he wanted. From the outside, it seemed as if John's life could never have a single problem. But as John looked around his life, he couldn't shake a feeling that had been growing inside him for months. Something felt off. It wasn't the money, or the house, or even the lifestyle. It was the people closest to him. John loved his family deeply, but he began to notice that their smiles sometimes felt like masks. His wife, though caring in many ways, often seemed more interested in how things looked to the outside world than in the moments they shared together. She loved hosting parties, attending social events, and being seen in the right circles. While there were moments of genuine warmth, there was also a quiet tension that he couldn't ignore. His children were bright and full of potential. His son had just started high school, and his daughter was learning piano, filling the house with music. On the surface, they were happy, polite, and well-behaved. Yet John had begun to notice subtle signs that they were learning to value things for what they were, not for who he was. Complaints about clothing brands, gadgets, and vacation plans started cropping up more often. He wondered whether they loved him for who he was, or simply because he provided a life of comfort. It wasn't just his family that concerned him. Friends who once seemed genuine started showing a different side whenever they came around. Conversations often drifted toward money, status, or what he could offer. Invitations arrived more frequently when he hosted a party or could fund an idea. And there were moments when he felt like he was surrounded by people who cared more about his bank account than his personality. The more John thought about it, the more he realized that wealth, while a blessing, could also be a test of human relationships. He remembered reading stories of people who had lost everything and how their true friends and family revealed themselves during those times. John didn't want to wait for a crisis to happen naturally. He wanted to see the truth himself. Did the people he loved and who loved him in return care because of who he was inside? Or was it the fortune he had built over decades that kept them close? This thought gnawed at him day and night. He started paying attention to small things: how his wife reacted to a delayed delivery, how his children handled minor disappointments, and how friends acted when he refused a request for help. Little observations built up a picture that was uncomfortable but telling. One afternoon, while sitting in his study surrounded by walls lined with books and awards, he felt a chill run through him. It was as if all the glitter and shine in his life suddenly seemed hollow. John knew. He had to do something drastic to understand the truth. Living in a world where money could buy almost anything, he realized, made it nearly impossible to know if people truly cared about him. He decided that he would create a situation that would strip away the comforts and security money provided, to see how his family and friends would react when there was nothing to gain from him. It wasn't a decision made lightly. He considered the risks carefully, understanding that it could lead to resentment, anger, and possibly even estrangement. Yet the curiosity and need for honesty outweighed the fear at first. The idea was only a thought, a quiet plan that he would whisper to himself in the solitude of the night. But as days passed, it grew stronger. He started imagining what it would be like to live without wealth, to experience life as an ordinary person, and to observe his loved ones' reactions without the veil of fortune between them. The more he thought about it, the more determined he became. This was not about revenge or testing anyone cruelly. It was about discovering the truth of human connection. John's mornings began to change. While breakfast still appeared on the table, he found himself distracted, thinking about ways to reduce the family's reliance on wealth without creating unnecessary harm. He watched how his wife interacted with staff and neighbors. He noticed small frustrations in his children. It's like when a new toy broke, or when they couldn't get something they wanted immediately. Each observation fueled his growing resolve to see the world from a different perspective. He also began spending time reflecting on his own behavior. Had he been contributing to the problem unknowingly? He realized that wealth often creates barriers. People may fear offending someone with more money, or may act differently because of perceived status. John had always tried to be humble, but even he had to admit that the house, the cars, and the lifestyle could create invisible walls around him, preventing authentic relationships. One evening, as he walked through his garden alone, he made a quiet promise to himself. He would take a step that few people would dare to take. He would give up his wealth temporarily, not for himself, but to understand the hearts of those around him. He wanted to see who would stand by him when there was no fortune to rely on, who would offer kindness and support purely for the person he was. It was a test that carried emotional weight, but he knew it was necessary. He wanted clarity, and he was willing to face discomfort to achieve it, even as he planned. John made sure to consider his family's well-being. He didn't want to create suffering for them unnecessarily. The goal wasn't punishment. It was revelation. He would ensure that his children were safe, that basic needs were met, and that no one would face harm. He began speaking to his assistant quietly, outlining ways to slowly reduce visible wealth without alarming the family to suddenly. It had to be believable, but it also had to be thorough. Over the next few weeks, John started small. He canceled some subscription services, reduced extravagant shopping, and began teaching his children simple money lessons under the guise of being more practical. These small changes seemed normal enough at first, but they planted seeds of curiosity in John's mind. He watched as his children reacted with mild frustration at first, but also noticed moments when they displayed resourcefulness and creativity. His wife, on the other hand, seemed slightly uncomfortable, asking more questions about finances and the household budget. It was subtle, but it was enough to confirm that his observations were beginning to reveal truths. Despite the excitement of the plan, John often found himself reflecting deeply. Walking through the house at night, seeing the silent, empty rooms, he wondered if the test would truly bring clarity or if it would create distance and misunderstanding. He worried about the reactions, the emotions, and the possible tension that could arise. Yet beneath that worry, there was a sense of purpose. He knew that without action, he would never understand the reality of the bonds around him. As the days passed, John became increasingly aware of how wealth had shaped every interaction in his life. Invitations, compliments, and expressions of love often carried the invisible weight of status. By imagining a life without money, he began to understand the simplicity and honesty that could exist beneath it. He realized that while money could make life easier, it could also cloud judgment and distort genuine connection. It was both a shield and a barrier, providing comfort but obscuring the true nature of relationships. John's thoughts often returned to his family. He loved them deeply, and the idea of disappointment or resentment from them was painful to imagine. Yet he also believed that the truth was worth the risk. If his family could learn and grow from the experience, if they could see that love and respect are not tied to wealth, then the temporary discomfort would be worth it. He imagined evenings spent sharing simple meals, conversations without pretense, and laughter unburdened by the expectations of luxury. That vision, simple and human, kept him motivated. One quiet night, after everyone had gone to bed, John sat in his study, writing down his plan in detail. He outlined steps to reduce visible wealth, ways to observe reactions, and measures to protect his family's well-being. Each detail was carefully considered. He knew the path would be challenging and emotional, but he also understood that this journey could bring insight that no amount of money or luxury could provide. By the time John finished writing, he felt a sense of calm determination. The plan was ready, and he knew that the first step would begin the very next day. As he turned off the lights and walked to his bedroom, he felt a mixture of anticipation, nervousness, and hope. He was about to step into a life that would strip away the comforts and illusions of wealth, all in pursuit of the truth about those he loved the most. And with that, John Matthews, the man who had everything money could buy, prepared to test the heart of his family, unaware of the lessons, revelations, and surprises that awaited him on the other side of this bold experiment. The next morning, John woke up feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. He moved through the house quietly, careful not to disturb his wife or children. Today marked the beginning of the experiment that had been forming in his mind for weeks. He had planned every detail meticulously. It wasn't about causing pain or chaos. It was about discovering the truth. He had to make it believable, gradual, and careful. He started with small steps that would subtly signal a change in their life. He went to the kitchen and instructed the staff that breakfast should be simple from now on. No imported fruits, no gourmet pastries, just the basics: eggs, toast, and local fruit. The staff looked at him with surprise, but he calmly explained that he wanted to simplify things for the family. Even small adjustments could plant the seed for change without alarming them completely. When his wife entered the kitchen, she noticed the difference immediately. The look on her face was a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Is everything okay, John?" she asked, trying to hide the unease in her voice. John smiled softly. "I just thought we should simplify things for a while, see how we manage," he said. He knew she would sense something unusual, but he wanted her to take it at face value. It was subtle, yet it was the first real step into the experiment as the day progressed. John continued to implement small changes. He canceled a few unnecessary subscriptions and reduced some of the household staff hours, explaining it as a minor adjustment to save money. He observed quietly, noting the reactions of his family. His wife appeared uneasy but didn't complain outright, which gave him a sense of cautious relief. His children, on the other hand, started to express mild frustration. His daughter complained about having to wait longer for her favorite snack, and his son grumbled about the limitations on gadgets he could use. John took careful mental notes. These reactions, small as they were, already began to reveal the truth about their dependence on comfort and luxury. By afternoon, John decided to stage a financial hiccup that would seem real to his family. He placed a call to the bank under the guise of routine inquiries and created a believable scenario where some funds had become temporarily unavailable. The call was short, but effective. Soon, he casually mentioned over lunch that some unexpected financial issues had come up. The room grew quiet. His wife looked concerned while his children exchanged confused glances. The first real tension had arrived, and John watched carefully, remaining composed. Over the next few days, John intensified the steps. He instructed his assistant to help him quietly sell a few assets, including a luxury car and some artwork, without alerting the family. They were careful to avoid sudden shocks, but made the changes noticeable enough so the family could feel a shift. John also started spending more time away from the house under the pretense of meetings. Giving his family space to adjust and react, he watched them from a distance, noting behavior that he hadn't observed before. His wife's reactions were subtle but telling. She started questioning every small purchase, suggesting cutting back on extras like cleaning services and personal shopping. She seemed frustrated more often and had a growing sense of unease. John observed her carefully, realizing that she had been accustomed to comfort and security and that the shift was challenging for her. Yet he also noticed moments of care and concern. She made sure the children were comfortable and safe, demonstrating that beneath the frustration, she genuinely cared about their well-being. His children, however, were more impulsive in their reactions. His son became restless and grumbled about losing privileges. He was used to immediate gratification and found it hard to adjust. His daughter, though initially frustrated, began to show creativity and resilience. She suggested practical solutions for small problems and even helped with household chores. These small acts of responsibility touched John deeply. He saw a spark of independence and empathy that had been hidden under the shield of luxury. John also began observing friends and distant relatives. Invitations slowed down naturally. Some friends seemed to disappear entirely when they realized his wealth was supposedly in question. Others reached out, offering help or support, and John noted their reactions quietly. This was revealing in ways he had not expected. Some people who had been close because of shared social circles now seemed distant, while others, whom he had considered casual acquaintances, showed genuine concern. The experiment was working. The layers were being peeled back one by one. One afternoon, while having tea in the modest dining area he had set up, John noticed a subtle change in the household atmosphere. The luxury had faded, but a kind of genuine interaction was emerging. His wife and children began to talk more openly about feelings, challenges, and even small joys. Without the shield of wealth, conversations were more honest. They laughed about minor inconveniences and shared ideas about how to handle the changes. John felt a mixture of pride and relief. This was exactly what he had hoped to see: the raw, human connections that money often masked. Even as the family adjusted, John made sure to keep a careful balance. He avoided extreme measures that could create fear or resentment. Meals were simple but nutritious. Schedules were more practical, and entertainment was modest. The family was learning to adapt without discomfort turning into hardship. John was pleased to see that even minor constraints brought out unexpected qualities: patience, problem-solving, and empathy. Over time, John began to see more subtle shifts in his wife's behavior. She started to appreciate small gestures of care, like helping with chores or planning meals. She laughed more genuinely. There were moments when she expressed appreciation for the things she had previously taken for granted. John realized that the experiment was not just about observing his family. It was also about giving them an opportunity to grow, to learn that life's value isn't in material wealth, but in love, effort, and connection. The children continued to show varied reactions. His son still struggled with frustration, but also had moments of unexpected maturity. He began to share ideas on how to solve small household problems and even helped his sister with chores. His daughter blossomed in this environment. She became resourceful, empathetic, and more confident. Watching them grow in real time was more rewarding than John had imagined. It wasn't the wealth that made him proud, it was the character they were developing under new circumstances. John's days were filled with quiet observation, small interventions, and careful planning. He maintained his routine in a way that made the transition seem natural. He occasionally engaged in simple tasks himself: cooking, cleaning, and organizing, to set an example and remain connected with the family. These actions had an unexpected effect. His family began to see him not just as a provider of luxury, but as a man of action, patience, and humility. The respect he had longed for was emerging organically, untainted by money. One evening, after dinner, John's wife spoke softly to him. "I know things are changing, and I'm not used to it, but I can see something different happening. We're learning, aren't we?" John smiled, feeling a warm sense of validation. "Yes," he replied, "we're learning to see what really matters." In that moment, he knew the experiment had begun to reveal the deeper truths he had sought. The initial discomfort had been worth it because it was leading to understanding, empathy, and connection. As the days turned into weeks, John continued to implement gradual changes, always observing, always learning. He understood that this experiment was not just about testing others. It was about transforming the way his family related to each other and to him. Each small act of kindness, patience, or creativity from his family reinforced the belief that love and connection could flourish even in the absence of wealth. By the end of the second part of his plan, John felt a quiet satisfaction. He had started the process, and although the full truth was yet to unfold, he was encouraged by the small victories. His family was beginning to show character, resilience, and genuine care. The experiment was far from over. But the first steps had already taught him invaluable lessons about human nature, relationships, and the power of simplicity. John went to bed that night reflecting on the day's events. The house, once a symbol of wealth and comfort, now felt alive with authenticity. Conversations were more meaningful, laughter was more genuine. The bonds of family were beginning to reveal their true strength. He knew that the coming days would bring more challenges, but he also knew that the journey was already proving its worth. The experiment had begun, and the results, though subtle now, were already promising. As days passed, John continued his careful experiment, observing the reactions of his family and those around him. He had moved further into the life of an ordinary person, shedding the comfort and luxury that had always surrounded him. The house was quieter now, the atmosphere simpler, yet a new energy had begun to emerge. It was subtle, almost invisible to anyone else, but John noticed it. Conversations felt more real, smiles more genuine, and small acts of kindness were appearing naturally. He understood that this was the stage where true behavior would start to show. His wife was struggling with the changes more than he had anticipated. She had grown used to having everything at her fingertips, and even small restrictions felt frustrating. She questioned expenses more frequently, suggested cuts in areas that once seemed untouchable, and occasionally let her frustration slip into sharper words than usual. John noticed it all, but didn't intervene directly. Instead, he observed quietly, seeing not just the annoyance, but also the moments when she demonstrated care and adaptability. She ensured the children were happy, tried to manage household tasks, and made an effort to maintain balance, even under discomfort. These moments were brief but telling, and John realized that beneath the frustration, love and responsibility remained strong. His son had a more visible struggle. He was used to immediate gratification and constant comfort. When restrictions became noticeable, he reacted with impatience and sometimes anger. There were moments when he demanded things, tried to convince his mother to bend rules, expressed resentment over the new limits. Yet, in the midst of this, John noticed small sparks of growth. The boy started to find solutions for minor problems, like repairing a broken toy or helping with small tasks around the house. Though hesitant and imperfect, these actions showed that he was beginning to adapt. John felt a mix of pride and hope, knowing that the real lessons were taking root slowly. His daughter, in contrast, seemed to thrive under the new circumstances. Without the constant access to luxury, she became resourceful and inventive. She helped with household chores, suggested creative ways to solve problems, and even comforted her brother when he became frustrated. John watched her closely, realizing that her confidence and empathy were growing in ways he had never seen before. These moments were a source of joy and reassurance. They showed him that, even when stripped of comfort, genuine care and responsibility could flourish. John also observed the reactions of friends and extended family. Invitations became rare, and some friends who had once seemed close now distanced themselves. Others, however, reached out in unexpected ways, offering support and simple gestures of kindness. Some neighbors helped without expectation, offering meals or small favors, revealing a surprising depth of humanity in unexpected places. John noted each reaction carefully, understanding that this stage of the experiment was revealing layers of character that wealth had previously hidden. One afternoon, John decided to introduce a more challenging situation. He simulated a small financial difficulty that would affect the family's daily routine. He explained that a few bills had been delayed, meaning that the family would need to make adjustments to spending. The immediate reaction was tension in the household. His wife seemed worried, his son frustrated, and even his daughter looked concerned. Yet, instead of panicking, they began to discuss solutions. Simple ideas emerged, planning meals differently, adjusting daily routines, and prioritizing essential needs over extras. It was a quiet triumph for John, who watched with satisfaction as the family demonstrated resilience and collaboration. In the evenings, John often spent time with his family in more modest settings. He played games with his children, cooked meals with his wife, and encouraged conversations about feelings and experiences. These moments, though small and seemingly ordinary, were charged with authenticity. Laughter came naturally, not forced by entertainment or luxury. Conversations touched on hopes, fears, and challenges, revealing the true emotional landscape of the family. John realized that this stage of life, stripped of material comfort, allowed them to connect in ways wealth had previously obscured. One night, John noticed his wife quietly tidying up the house, humming a song softly to herself. She had adapted to the simpler lifestyle with grace, even if it was not without difficulty. John approached her and gently said, "I know this isn't easy, but I'm proud of how we're handling it together." She paused, looked at him, and smiled, a mixture of relief and understanding in her eyes. "We're learning," she replied simply. John felt a warmth in his heart. It was a small moment, but it reinforced everything he had hoped to achieve through the experiment. The children continued to show growth. His son, while still occasionally frustrated, began to show initiative. He fixed small problems without being asked and even started to take responsibility for his own tasks. His daughter, ever resourceful, continued to support the household and care for her brother. Displaying empathy and leadership beyond her years, John realized that these small, consistent actions were far more meaningful than any luxury could provide. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that the family was learning and growing together. John continued to monitor the reactions of friends and neighbors. He found that those who genuinely cared reached out with empathy, offering support without expectation of gain. These gestures, small yet significant, reinforced his belief that human connection could exist independently of wealth. Conversely, he noticed that those who had previously relied on his status gradually withdrew, revealing true intentions. It was a bittersweet realization, but one that provided clarity and insight into the nature of relationships. As the days progressed, John began introducing more subtle challenges that required problem-solving and teamwork. He asked the family to plan meals on a budget, manage household tasks together, and find ways to entertain themselves without relying on external luxury. The process was not easy. Arguments arose, mistakes were made, and moments of frustration tested patience. Yet through these experiences, the family began to develop resilience, empathy, and a deeper understanding of each other. John observed quietly, offering guidance only when necessary, allowing them to learn from experience. One evening, during a simple dinner, John noticed a shift in the conversation. His wife and children were discussing how they could make daily routines more enjoyable and efficient. They laughed together over small mistakes and celebrated small successes. The atmosphere felt warmer, more connected, and more authentic. John realized that the experiment was achieving results beyond what he had imagined. The family was beginning to bond in ways that were not dependent on wealth or luxury, and the true character of each member was emerging. John also reflected on his own role in the experiment. By stepping away from wealth, he had gained a new perspective on life. He saw the challenges his family faced not as inconveniences, but as opportunities for growth. He recognized the importance of patience, empathy, and understanding in relationships. This experience was shaping not only his family, but also himself, reminding him that true leadership and connection required presence, attention, and humility. During this stage, John also began to understand the value of small gestures. A kind word, a helping hand, or a simple act of consideration had far more impact than grand displays of wealth. He encouraged his family to practice these gestures daily, and gradually, they became more attuned to each other's needs. The household, once filled with silent expectations and unspoken pressures, was beginning to hum with genuine care and cooperation. As the weeks continued, John noticed a transformation in the family dynamics. The children were more responsible, empathetic, and resourceful. His wife was more patient, understanding, and appreciative of the efforts made by each family member. The connections between them felt deeper, more resilient, and authentic. Even in moments of frustration, there was a sense of unity and shared purpose. John realized that the experiment, while challenging, was fostering growth and strengthening bonds in ways that wealth alone never could. John also observed subtle changes in himself. He became more patient, more attentive, and more appreciative of the simple joys in life. By stepping away from luxury, he was reminded of the value of presence, empathy, and authenticity. He understood that the experiment was not only revealing the character of his family, but also refining his own. Each day brought new insights, small victories, and meaningful lessons. One afternoon, John noticed his daughter quietly helping his son with a task he had been struggling with. The moment was simple, yet profoundly touching. It was a clear sign that empathy and care were taking root in the family. Similarly, his wife began taking small initiatives to support the household in ways that went beyond comfort or convenience. These moments, though seemingly ordinary, were powerful indicators of genuine growth and connection. John felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that the experiment was moving in the right direction. The family was learning resilience, empathy, and the value of genuine connection. The lessons being learned were far more meaningful than any luxury could provide. Each small act of care, cooperation, or understanding reinforced the importance of love, patience, and authenticity. The family was beginning to thrive in ways that wealth had never truly allowed, as he reflected on the progress. John realized that the experiment was far from over, but the results were already encouraging. The family was adapting, growing, and forming deeper bonds. He understood that the journey ahead would continue to test patience, empathy, and resilience. But he also knew that these experiences were essential for meaningful transformation. The experiment was revealing not only the character of his family, but also the potential for growth, understanding, and authentic connection. By the end of this phase, John felt a sense of quiet pride and hope. The family was showing signs of true growth, and the bonds between them were strengthening. The experiment had begun to achieve its purpose, revealing the character of those around him, fostering empathy and resilience, and creating an environment where genuine care could flourish. John understood that the lessons learned during this time would have a lasting impact, shaping the family's future and their ability to connect meaningfully with each other. As time went on, John realized that the real test of his experiment was not just in observing daily habits, but in seeing how his family handled deeper challenges and unexpected situations. Life, even in a simplified form, was full of surprises. And he wanted to see who would rise to the occasion when faced with genuine difficulty. The days of small adjustments had led to subtle growth, but now it was time to see the character beneath the surface come forward in a more revealing way. One morning, John decided to introduce a challenge that required teamwork and problem-solving. He told his family that the water heater had broken and that they would need to manage without hot water until it could be fixed. At first, his wife seemed frustrated, and his son complained loudly, insisting that he couldn't go without comfort. His daughter, however, immediately began suggesting practical ways to adapt, taking short showers, using warm towels, and helping each other with daily routines. John watched intently, noting how the family began to adjust. The initial frustration gave way to cooperation, and even his son, after a few attempts, started to contribute solutions rather than complaints. Over the next few days, John continued to create small scenarios that would test their patience, creativity, and empathy. He asked them to manage meals with a limited budget, solve minor household problems, and find ways to entertain themselves without relying on external resources. Each time he observed carefully, noting the moments of growth and genuine effort. The family was learning to navigate challenges without the shield of wealth, and their reactions were becoming more authentic and revealing. John's wife began to show a remarkable transformation. Initially anxious and resistant to the changes, she started to embrace the situation with quiet determination. She planned meals thoughtfully, organized schedules, and found joy in small successes. She laughed more genuinely, celebrated the efforts of the children, and even offered comfort and support during moments of frustration. John felt a growing respect and admiration for her resilience and adaptability. He realized that her love and care had always been present, but the constraints had revealed them more clearly. His children continued to grow in their own ways. His son, who had initially struggled with impatience and entitlement, began to take responsibility for small tasks and even offered help without being asked. His daughter continued to display empathy, leadership, and creativity, often guiding her brother and helping her mother with household challenges. John watched them with a mixture of pride and hope, understanding that the lessons they were learning would shape their character in meaningful ways. One evening, John decided to step further into the experiment by sharing a deeper concern with the family. He told them that some unexpected bills had come due, and that they would need to be more mindful of expenses until the situation stabilized. The news was met with a mix of anxiety and concern. His wife asked detailed questions, his son expressed frustration, and his daughter offered practical solutions. John observed silently, allowing them to process the situation and respond in their own ways. It was a critical moment, revealing how each member dealt with pressure and responsibility. In the following days, John noticed subtle but significant changes in the household atmosphere. The family had begun to communicate more openly, share responsibilities, and support each other in ways that had been rare before. Arguments and frustrations still occurred, but they were accompanied by problem-solving, empathy, and compromise. John realized that the experiment was not just testing loyalty or love, it was fostering growth, understanding, and resilience in ways that luxury had never allowed. John also observed the reactions of friends and neighbors. Those who genuinely cared continued to offer support without expectation, while those who had been drawn to wealth gradually faded away. The contrast was striking and enlightening. It confirmed John's belief that true connection is revealed not by comfort and privilege, but by the challenges and vulnerabilities we face together. He felt a sense of clarity and gratitude for the lessons being revealed through this process. One afternoon, a small household mishap occurred. A minor leak in the kitchen caused some inconvenience. Instead of reacting with frustration, the family came together to address the issue. His daughter took the lead in organizing tools and materials. His son helped with practical tasks, and his wife coordinated the effort. The problem was resolved efficiently, and John felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This simple incident demonstrated the growth and cooperation that had been quietly developing over the weeks. As the experiment continued, John began to introduce subtle opportunities for reflection and personal growth. He encouraged conversations about feelings, aspirations, and challenges, allowing each family member to express themselves openly. These moments of dialogue fostered empathy and understanding, strengthening the bonds between them. John observed how the family responded to each other with patience, kindness, and encouragement. It was a powerful reminder of the human capacity for connection and growth. One evening, after a long day of managing household tasks and navigating challenges, John's wife approached him quietly. "I know this isn't easy," she said softly, "but I can see how much we've grown. I'm proud of what we're learning together." John felt a warmth in his chest, recognizing the significance of her words. The experiment had begun to achieve results beyond his expectations. The family was not just surviving, they were learning, adapting, thriving in a more authentic and connected way. John also began to notice changes in himself. Living without the constant buffer of luxury had given him a deeper appreciation for the simple joys of life. He found satisfaction in small accomplishments, connection with his family, and moments of genuine laughter and warmth. The experiment was shaping him as much as it was shaping the others. He realized that true leadership and connection required presence, humility, and empathy, not wealth or status. As the days progressed, John introduced moments of reflection for the family. He asked them to consider what they had learned from the challenges, how they had supported each other, and what values were truly important. These conversations were illuminating. His wife spoke about patience and resilience. His son shared insights about responsibility and cooperation, and his daughter reflected on empathy and leadership. John felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The experiment was revealing not just behavior, but character, values, the depth of love within the family. One particularly quiet evening, John watched as his children worked together on a household task. His daughter guided her brother patiently, explaining steps and offering encouragement. His son, in turn, showed initiative and determination, completing tasks with care and focus. John's wife observed with pride, occasionally offering guidance and support. The scene was simple, yet deeply moving. It illustrated the transformation that had taken place within the family. Cooperation, empathy, and genuine care were now evident in their interactions. Demonstrating the true success of the experiment, John also continued to observe the reactions of friends and neighbors. Genuine support and empathy continued to emerge from unexpected places. Simple gestures: a neighbor bringing over a small meal, a friend offering advice without expectation, a colleague checking in with concern, highlighted the value of authenticity in human relationships. These interactions reinforced John's understanding that wealth often clouds true intentions, and that real connection is revealed through shared experiences, challenges, and care. As the experiment progressed, John found himself reflecting on the broader lessons being learned. The family was discovering the importance of empathy, patience, resilience, and cooperation. They were learning to value effort over privilege, connection over convenience, and character over comfort. John felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that these lessons would have a lasting impact on the family's future and on the relationships they built with others. One afternoon, a minor health issue arose. A cold swept through the household, leaving the children feeling under the weather. Instead of reacting with stress or frustration, the family came together to care for each other. His wife prepared warm meals and comforted the children. His daughter assisted with care and organization, and his son offered small acts of kindness and attention. John observed with pride and warmth, realizing that these moments of care, empathy, and cooperation were the most valuable outcomes of the experiment as the days turned into weeks. John continued to implement subtle challenges, observe responses, and foster reflection. The family was learning to navigate life with patience, creativity, and empathy. They were discovering the value of effort, connection, and shared responsibility. John recognized that the experiment was shaping not only the family, but himself as well. He was reminded of the importance of presence, humility, and authentic connection in building meaningful relationships. By the end of this phase, John felt a profound sense of accomplishment and hope. The family was showing resilience, empathy, and genuine care. The bonds between them were stronger, more authentic, and more enduring. The experiment had revealed the character of each family member, fostered growth and understanding, and created a foundation of connection that would endure beyond the presence or absence of wealth. John understood that the journey was not over, but the lessons learned thus far had already transformed the household and set the stage for the final revelations yet to come. As the final stage of his experiment unfolded, John Matthews felt a mix of anticipation and reflection. The family had already shown remarkable growth, but he knew the most meaningful lessons were about to be revealed. He had carefully observed the past weeks, the small victories, the genuine moments of care and empathy. Now it was time to see how deep the bonds went and how resilient they truly were. The final phase was not about creating hardships, but about allowing the family to experience clarity, understanding, and connection on a deeper level. John decided that it was time to reveal the truth gradually. He wanted his family to understand the reasons behind the changes and the lessons that had emerged. One morning, he gathered his wife and children in the living room. The air was filled with quiet curiosity. He spoke calmly, explaining that he had been observing them in ways that were not immediately visible, and that the recent challenges had been part of an intentional experiment. His voice carried sincerity and care, emphasizing that the purpose was to understand love, character, and genuine connection. At first, the reactions were a mix of surprise, confusion, and a little hurt. His wife looked stunned, his son struggled to process the information, and his daughter listened intently, absorbing every word. John continued, carefully explaining that he wanted to see how they would handle difficulties without relying on wealth. To reveal the qualities that truly defined their character, he spoke about the growth he had observed, the patience, empathy, creativity, and resilience that had emerged over time as the truth sank in. His wife began to tear up, a mix of relief, understanding, and gratitude in her eyes. She expressed that while the challenges had been difficult, they had also revealed strengths she had not fully appreciated in herself and the children. John listened, feeling a deep sense of validation. The experiment had not only tested his family, but it had also brought them closer together in ways he had hoped for but never been certain would happen. His son, after an initial moment of frustration and confusion, began to speak about what he had learned. He admitted that he had struggled with impatience and reliance on comfort, but that the experience had taught him to take responsibility, problem solve, and appreciate the efforts of others. His words were sincere, reflecting a maturity that had been quietly developing over the past weeks. John felt a swell of pride, realizing that the lessons had taken root in his son's character. His daughter, always insightful, spoke about empathy, cooperation, and understanding. She expressed that she had learned to appreciate the small acts of care, the importance of supporting each other, and the value of connection over convenience. John listened quietly, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. The children's reflections confirmed that the experiment had not been in vain. It had nurtured the values and qualities he had hoped to cultivate. Over the next few days, John focused on rebuilding the household into a space of authenticity and care. The family had already adapted to simpler routines, but now they began to celebrate the lessons learned. Meals became moments of conversation and laughter. Chores were completed together with shared effort, and evenings were filled with storytelling, games, and reflection. John noticed a warmth in the house that had not existed before, quiet, steady sense of connection and understanding that could not be bought or fabricated. John also took time to express his gratitude to each member of his family individually. He praised his wife for her resilience and care, acknowledging the challenges she had faced and the grace with which she had handled them. He spoke to his son about growth, responsibility, and the courage it took to adapt. He praised his daughter for her empathy, leadership, and resourcefulness. These conversations were deeply human, personal, and authentic, reinforcing the lessons of love, care, and mutual respect. The experiment also extended beyond the household. John reached out to friends and neighbors, reconnecting in meaningful ways. Those who had offered genuine support during the past weeks were acknowledged and celebrated, while relationships that had been based on convenience or status naturally faded. John realized that the clarity gained through the experiment was not just about family. It was about understanding human relationships at their core and appreciating those who offered sincerity, empathy, and care. One weekend, John planned a small family outing, intentionally simple but meaningful. They went to a nearby park, brought homemade snacks, and spent the day walking, playing, and talking. There were no luxuries, no elaborate planning, just time together. He observed the interactions between his wife and children, noting the laughter, the shared efforts, and the empathy that flowed naturally. It was a quiet, powerful affirmation of the lessons learned, and John felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The family had not only survived the challenges, but had grown closer, stronger, and more connected than ever before. In the evenings, John encouraged reflection and discussion about the journey they had been on. Each family member shared insights about patience, understanding, resilience, and empathy. They spoke about challenges faced, moments of frustration, and the joy found in small acts of kindness. John listened, proud and humbled, realizing that the most important treasures in life were not wealth or status, but the connections they had nurtured and the values they had strengthened together. The culmination of the experiment came one evening when John invited his family to a modest dinner. He explained that he wanted to celebrate their journey, the lessons learned, and the growth they had achieved. As they sat together, enjoying simple food and conversation, there was a sense of completion and understanding in the room. John looked at each family member, seeing the changes in their eyes, their expressions, and their interactions. The growth, resilience, and empathy that had developed were evident, creating a quiet, profound joy within him. John's wife, with a soft smile, expressed her gratitude for the experience. She acknowledged that the experiment had been challenging but transformative, helping them understand what truly mattered. His son, with newfound maturity, spoke about responsibility, patience, and appreciation for the support and care of others. His daughter reflected on empathy, connection, and leadership, demonstrating the depth of understanding she had gained. John felt a quiet pride, realizing that the lessons learned would endure far beyond the experiment. In the following days, John reintegrated aspects of wealth and comfort gradually, but the focus remained on authenticity, connection, and care. The family continued to live with mindfulness, gratitude, and empathy, balancing comfort with responsibility and genuine human interaction. The lessons learned during the experiment had become a foundation for their relationships, shaping the household into a space of understanding, love, and growth. John also spent time reflecting on his own transformation. The experiment had taught him humility, patience, empathy, and the value of authentic connection. He realized that wealth and status, while providing comfort, could obscure the true nature of relationships and human character. By stepping away from luxury, he had discovered the depth of love, care, and resilience in his family, and had nurtured these qualities in himself as well. the family continued to support and care for one another, celebrating small achievements and learning from challenges together. Meals were shared with conversation and laughter. Household tasks were completed cooperatively, and moments of reflection and gratitude became routine. The bonds between them had strengthened, creating a foundation of trust, empathy, and understanding that would endure through the years. John also ensured that the children carried forward the lessons they had learned. He encouraged them to practice empathy, take responsibility, and value genuine connection in their interactions with others. He emphasized the importance of understanding character over comfort, relationships over convenience, and love over material possessions. The children, having experienced growth and insight firsthand, embraced these lessons with maturity and sincerity. In time, John invited his extended family and close friends to visit, sharing the story of the experiment in a way that celebrated growth, understanding, and connection. Those who had supported them were honored, and the experiences were shared as examples of the power of empathy, patience, and resilience. The household had become a beacon of authenticity, demonstrating that the lessons of love and human connection were more valuable than any material wealth as weeks turned into months. John reflected on the journey with a deep sense of fulfillment. The experiment had revealed the true nature of his family, strengthened their bonds, and nurtured qualities that would endure for a lifetime. It had transformed not just the household, but also himself, teaching humility, presence, and the importance of authenticity. The lessons learned were profound, shaping the family's values, interactions, and understanding of what truly mattered in life. One quiet evening, John sat with his family in the living room, the room filled with laughter, conversation, and warmth. The journey they had undertaken together was complete, yet its impact would last forever. He looked at his wife and children, seeing the growth, love, and empathy reflected in their eyes. The experiment had achieved more than he could have imagined. It had revealed the depth of human connection, the resilience of character, and the enduring power of love and understanding. John understood that life would continue to present challenges, but the family was now equipped with the tools to face them with patience, empathy, and resilience. The bonds they had formed, tested, and strengthened during this period would guide them in all future experiences. The lessons learned would shape their actions, decisions, and interactions for years to come, providing a foundation of love, understanding, and authentic connection in the final moments of the experiment. John felt a profound sense of peace and satisfaction. The family had grown together, learned from challenges, and discovered the true value of connection and empathy. Wealth and luxury, while still present, had become secondary to the bonds they had nurtured and the qualities they had developed. The journey had revealed not just behavior, but character, values, and the enduring strength of love. As John looked around at his family, sharing simple moments of joy and conversation, he realized that the experiment had achieved its ultimate purpose. It had revealed the depth of human character, nurtured empathy and resilience, and strengthened the bonds of love that would endure for a lifetime. The family was united, connected, and transformed. And John knew that the lessons of this journey would guide them in all future challenges, joys, and experiences. The story of their growth, connection, and understanding was now complete, leaving a lasting legacy of love and authenticity within their home